I just returned from Resident Evil Afterlife, which, if you're keeping track, is part 4. I know you're wondering, well, where's part 2 and where's part 3? I ran out of time, so I didn't watch them. Once again, this is made by Paul W.S. Anderson. Say what you will about him, but in my opinion, he directs really good action scenes. And at the heart, that's pretty much what this movie is. Don't think of it as a horror film, because it's really not. It's really just an action film, but instead of like fighting people and blowing up normal humans, they're fighting and blowing up zombies. So, I mean, I guess it's kind of a horror film, but it's not really. Returning as the main character Alice is Mila Jovovich. Also returning is Ali Larder as Claire Redfield, but she spends like 99% of the movie not remembering that she's Claire Redfield, so it doesn't really matter that she's Claire Redfield, but I guess Heroes got canceled, so a girl's gotta work. Alright, a newcomer to this series is Wentworth Miller, who plays Chris Redfield, who, if you've ever played the games, then you'll recognize the character name. Funny thing about Wentworth Miller, you might recognize him from his stint on Prison Break. The funny thing about this movie is when you meet him, he's in prison, and he's the only one who knows how to escape prison. Alright, so here's kind of the basic plot, and I'll try to stay as spoiler-free as possible, since you guys might want to watch this. There's a lot of complaints I read about the plot, how it's like, stupid and it doesn't really make sense or whatever. I actually thought the plot was one of the strongest points of this film. Because unlike part 2 and part 3, which were a lot messier compared to this film, it has a much simpler story. Basically, she goes to Alaska to try to find the survivors, which is from the end of part 3. And then after that, she ends up going to LA, in which she finds a group of survivors on top of a roof, and she ditches her plane along with Claire Redfield, and is on top of this roof with these like 5 or 6 survivors. And the whole point of the movie is them trying to get from the roof to the harbor where there's a ship waiting for them. So, I mean, that's it. That's the whole plot of the movie. So, I mean, it sounds kind of lame, but because of its simplicity, it actually kind of works. And then, of course, along the way, there's like hordes of zombies, so they have to try to kind of get inventive and figure out how to get out. If you've played the recent Resident Evil game, number 5, which is the one where you get to play co-op, which is really fun, but really lame if you play by yourself. So get a friend and play it. But anyway, if you've played that game, you'll recognize a lot of kind of similar stuff in this one, which was awesome. For example, you have the Executioner, who in the video game is really terrifying and really hard. And in the movie, he's awesome. And the fight scene was one of the best fight scenes of the film. And when he walks, he has a really cool entrance too. And so when he was walking down, this girl behind me was like, "Ooh, Executioner!" So she was really excited that he was in the film. Also from the last 2 Resident Evil video games are the new creatures, which aren't exactly zombies, but they're something else. They're called the Majin, or I don't know. But it's the people with the face things that open up and... And again, that same girl behind me was like, "Ah, it's the Majin." I don't think it's an Asian sounding name like that, but I'm making it sound Asian. Probably because I ate at Buffet Asia tonight. Which, I guess it was good. But then about 10 minutes later, I ran to the bathroom at McDonald's and tore it up. Because my stomach was tore up, so... TMI. I had a little bit of complaints about the film. Because if you remember from part 3, there's a problem of running out of gas. But then in this one, she has a plane that she flies, like, all over the country. Like, all the way up to Alaska, and then all the way back to LA. And it still never runs out of gas, which, I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but don't planes run on gas, too? So, if there was no gas, shouldn't she have no gas? My number 1 complaint about this film, though, is the ending. Now, if you've seen any of the Resident Evil films, you know that they always end on a cliffhanger. This one ends with a huge cliffhanger, as in it was like a TV show, and it was like, to be continued, and you would just tune back in next week and see what happens. But there is no next week, because, if they make a 5th film, you have to wait like 2 years. So, and no, never before have they ended where it was like blatant, right in the middle of action, stuff's about to happen, and then credits roll. So, that was kind of lame. Everything up to the ending was awesome, though. It's the best Resident Evil film since the first one. So, I mean, if you're not a fan of the whole series, then that won't mean anything to you. But to me, which I loved all of them, this one was awesome. I recommend watching it in 3D. I thought it would be kind of like, you know, watching Honey, I Shrunk the Audience at Disney. But it's not. They don't abuse it, and it kind of heightens everything. Like when she's looking over the edge of a building, you actually feel like you're looking over the edge of a building, and you kind of feel it everywhere. So I recommend watching it in 3D if you can afford it, because it's usually a little bit more expensive. Now, if you watch the trailers, it seems like the whole movie looks like The Matrix. That was a turnoff for me. Don't let it be a turnoff for you, because it only happens in the first 10 minutes. That's the part where there's the Chinese stars coming at your face, and the sword coming at you, and her like cutting off heads, and the heads falling towards you. Did you like that? It was kind of like it was in 3D, but flat, so 2D. But how cool would it be if I was in 3D? You wouldn't even know what to do. If you liked any of the Resident Evil films, you're going to love this one. Also, if you like playing Resident Evil 5, the video game, you're going to love this movie, because there's a lot of, you know, nods to that, including, like I said, the Executioner, the Majing people, and also the final fight scene with Wesker is very similar to the second to final fight scene from the video game, which that's only a spoiler if you've played the video game. That's it for Resident Evil Afterlife. Tomorrow, I promise I will have a film that was not made by Paul W.S. Anderson. Also, you know, go ahead and leave a comment if there's a film that you are interested in me talking about. Whether it be something you've already watched and you want my opinion on it, or something you're kind of curious about watching and you want to know if it's worth your time. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep picking films that I like to watch. So, subscribe, leave a comment, keep following me. I'll keep telling you about awesome stuff. Bye.